All right, so I am in the process of putting on the natural gas kit onto the generator, but I took it apart. The stud is a step stud. It goes from an 8 millimeter to a 6 millimeter, and I can't buy something like that because what I need is I need an extension of about a 1/4 inch. So I bought all thread because that's what I used last time when I did this. It was a 6 millimeter all the way through, and it worked just fine and easy. This time it's not going to work. So what I'm doing is I'm buying bolts and I'm going to cut and grind them and weld them together to make that step stud. I used to have a 4,000 watt generator and bought a natural gas kit for it, which was that thing right there. And it also came with this piece right here to hook up to the carburetor. But when I bought the new generator at 6,000 watts, this piece right here did not fit. When first thing I had to modify the holes to where it would fit wide or fit on this guy, and also the hole was very small, and this piece right here interfered with the carburetor. So what I had to do is I had to go and make my own parts, and this was the first one I made. It had interference on the airbox. This one had interference on something else, I forget what. And then I made this one that was offset so that it did not have interference with the airbox, and this one actually kind of worked. But when I did this one, I liked the way it looked, and so that led me to these. These two are the same. This one has been acetone, I'm sorry, this one has been sanded and acetone smoothed, so it's very smooth finish for a good surface finish for seal. This is the exact same one, not sanded, not smoothed, but will be. So I printed it with the threads, and then I had to run a tap in there just to get the threads to clean up and everything. So now I'm going to go ahead and assemble it, and let's see if it works. One piece I almost forgot to tell you was that on my other generator, I had to buy longer 6 millimeter studs that go through. And on this one, it's actually an 8 millimeter stud going into the head and a 6 millimeter stud coming out of here. So I had to go and buy a 6 millimeter, I'm sorry, an 8 millimeter bolt and 6 millimeter bolts, and I had to weld them together so that I could make studs that would step down from 8 millimeter down to 6 millimeters. And that was a little bit of a pain. But yeah, luckily I was able to do that. And then you also had to make sure that the 8 millimeter didn't go too far, because then it hits somewhere around here, or it's somewhere around here on the other side. So I had to make sure that the 8 millimeter was short enough to where it would allow the carburetor to go seat fully back. So I've bolted on the airbox. This piece is on there, pretty rigid, and just make sure that the butterfly can still rotate like it needs to and not be obstructed by the hole. This hole is a little bit smaller. I believe this hole has to be smaller so that you can pull vacuum on here, which this goes here. That goes in there. I need to put the hose clamp on it first. And then I also had to notch out this piece because you can see, because the air filter moved forward a little bit, I now have interference right here. So I had to notch out, like I said, that piece on there. All right, so it's all hooked up. So let's drag it out to the natural gas area and see if it works. All right, so I got it working. Took me a number of pulls to get it to work. Let me back out a little bit, just further away so it's not as loud. Um, like I said, it took me a lot of pulls. I finally had to just turn the gas off, the natural gas off, and pull it a couple of times, and it fired, because I think I just flooded it out because I was just pumping in so much natural gas that it wouldn't even fire. It never even sounded like it sparked once, and I was wondering if the spark plug was bad. But I finally turned the gas off at that yellow valve. Let's see if I can zoom in on it. At that guy right there, so that I could flush all the natural gas out. And as soon as I did that, it popped once. I turned the gas back on, pulled it, and it was barely running because I had it choked off so much on the natural gas. And then when it was barely running, I started increasing the mixture because it's got a needle valve on top of the regulator, and it started running fine. So that's where we're at. Awesome. And the other upgrade I do is I put a magnet on the end of the dipstick. You can buy dipsticks with magnets, but I just went ahead and bought 50 magnets for $1 or something like that. And then I just drill a hole through the dipstick, use a little bit of wire to hold the magnet on, and that way when I pull the dipstick out, whatever magnet or whatever metal shavings are in there will come out with the magnet, and I can clean off the magnet. So that just helps the life of the generator last a little bit longer. Okay, so I've got it all running. It is a bear to start because you have to turn the natural gas on, do a number of pulls, turn the natural gas off, do 1 or 2 pulls and let it kick over, and then quickly turn the natural gas back on because it does not like to start with the natural gas on because it floods itself out for some reason. I'm not exactly sure why. I haven't played with it too much, but now I'm just letting it run, break in a little bit before I put too much load on it. I did put a 3,000 watt load on it, and it loaded up the engine. I put 2 resistive heaters on it, and that loaded the engine up, and it did its thing. It was supposed to do, and it worked harder. But now I'm just going to let it run, break in, and then check the oil, check the magnet, find out if there's any metal particles in the oil, and then change the oil after an hour. And really the reason I did this is that when you're running off natural gas, you never have to drain the carb. You don't have to worry about the carb gumming up. And you don't have to make sure that you got enough gas and gas cans, because if power's off for 3 days and you're going to want to run power for all 3 days, and this thing burns, I don't know, 8 hours a tank at half load, or 6 hours a tank at half load. That tank, I think, is 4 gallons. So 4 times 4 is 16 gallons a day. That's a lot of jerry cans to keep around the house. But running off natural gas, A, it's a cheaper fuel, and B, it just comes out of the line. All right, looking at my gas meter, you can see this guy moving slowly. The whole yard's flooded. Just a matter of minutes. I unbuckled those.